I'm Mary, a librarian and book reviewer with a focus on stories written for kids, tweens, and teens. Today I get to share with you this book called Marie Curie in the Land of Science by Irene Cohen-Janka and Claudia Palmarucci. This is the story of Marie Curie, who is a famous scientist living in a time when women were not always allowed to do the things that men could do. And so, despite the fact that she grew up in a household that praised education, she was living in a world that was a little bit closed to her. Luckily, she found herself in a situation where she was able to go study in Paris, and she was able to focus on the sciences that she loved so much. It wasn't easy for her, but she worked really hard in order to be able to follow her passions. Along the way, she met Pierre Curie, and together they started a legacy of scientific discovery that exists into the present day. Unfortunately, what they did not know is that the materials with which they were working would ultimately hurt them in more ways than they realized. But along the way, they made huge strides in scientific understanding, and Marie Curie remains a figure in both scientific and history in general. This story chronicles Marie Curie's life from a young age to the time of her death, and it focuses on all of the things that she had to overcome in order to achieve her goals. So not only did she live in a world that was not very open to women, but also she wasn't allowed to speak her home language at school. Nonetheless, she did what she could to continue learning in the places that she was able, and even though she had to be patient, she ultimately found herself in a position of higher education. So as you're going through the book, there are a good amount of text. You have blocks of text on each page with a couple sentences each time, and they are really good at describing everything that's happening within the context of the book. So Marie Curie's life obviously was not very short, and there were a lot of things that happened, and yet within the pages of this book, most of the major elements of her life story come to life. So the book has small text, as you can see, but the illustrations are really the paramount feature of each page. They were really carefully researched by the illustrator, and there are some notes in the end of the book to give some insight into how that research went down. And readers of all ages are going to find a lot to look at in these pictures, a lot to consider about how the illustrations are done. And because they are so realistic in nature, it's easier for readers to place themselves in Marie Curie's life as they're reading about it. The book was translated from its original French for an English-speaking audience, and it incorporates a lot of information not only about Marie Curie and her life, but also about the social situation and the sciences that went into her existence. It doesn't go into a huge amount of scientific depth, but it's a good starting place from which readers can further their studies and information gathering about Marie Curie and her life. So this is an ambitious undertaking. There's a lot of information in this book, a lot of really beautiful illustrations that accompany it, and it is a great place for elementary school age readers in particular to begin learning about Marie Curie. However, readers of all ages are sure to learn something new from the pages of this book as well. If this sounds like a great fit for you or for someone you know, I hope you look for it wherever you get your books.